You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is May 8th, 2024, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty, where we are bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. Today, we're just doing a sort of a news roundup. We had promised you last week we were going to talk about the campus protests that have been happening all over the country, and we didn't get to it, so we're going to do that today. We're also going to talk about Trump will be at the Libertarian Party Convention. So that's kind of big news for libertarians to grouse over. So we figured we'd touch on that at the beginning of the show too. And then of course we'll have something a little bit funny on our Knucklehead Noise Patrol related to the campuses as well. But before we get into that, let me introduce you to our panel today. In our upper left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. He's also our visible hand today, since we have no invisible hand helping us. So if you see Leon staring hard at the screen, it's because he's doing some behind-the-scenes magic for us. And on our upper right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. And my name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host today. We start off every show with our Liberty quote nowadays. And I thought this one was kind of relevant to what we're going to be talking about today, which, focusing on, which is a lot of the campus protests. And this is about free speech. And so this is a quote from John Stuart Mill, one of my favorites. And says, if all mankind minus one were of one opinion and only one person were of the contrary opinion, mankind would be no more justified in silencing that one person than he, if he had the power, would be justified in silencing all of mankind. So I thought that's, gets right to the heart of free speech. So what do you guys think about that quote?
Yeah, that's a good quote. Good quote. Yeah, just goes to the heart of free speech, like you say. So whether it's one or all, everybody has a right to their opinion and should not be silenced for it. Meta.
I don't think what's his name over at Facebook has this poster on his wall. He probably should though.
I really do wish some of these idiots we see on the campuses today will understand that. I know we'll be talking about the protests later on and all that, but I really wish they would understand this quote by John Stuart Mills. And I wish some of their teachers and their professors, some of the administrators will understand this quote, because it's only certain type of speech is tolerated on the campuses. Okay, if you are left winger, if you are other kinds of leftists, they will tolerate that, but nobody else. And this is a real problem, and it's playing out quite clearly on the campuses today.
Yeah, and it's not just the campuses. I mean, we've seen this playing out as well, in as Tim alluded to, in social media and everywhere else. It's just, for some reason, everybody thinks if they have an opinion, it's much more important than everybody else's opinion, and therefore they have the right to shut them up. And, boy, I tell you, people would do well to go back and read a little bit of John Stuart Mill on liberty. So
I will say that what you just said, I'll say it a little bit different. Jason, I agree with what you just said.
No, I won't allow you to. No, I'm sorry. Just kidding.
Yeah, let's go on to the next subject.
I'm just not going to hear it, Leon.
Leon, I've said enough. Yeah, but I'm just what I would say though, that a little bit different, is that I think people, some sectors of our society, has taken upon themselves a certain right, and that is the right not to be offended. And they think that if they are offended, that means they should be able to shut somebody up because of their supposed offense. When there is no such thing, you have no right to not be offended. Okay, you have no such right. And this is the problem. I think people believe that they have some right not to be offended.
Well, I think that's an excellent segue into our first topic, which is Trump at the Libertarian Convention, because I can't think of anybody who has, I guess, people have tried to silence more for being offended by him. I mean, that's been like the story of the last 4 or 5 years, I think. And it's kind of interesting. He's going to speak at the Libertarian Convention. So let me see if I can. Okay, so here is the story in the AP, and it says Trump will speak at the Libertarian Convention as he woos independent voters, is what they're saying. But the Libertarian Party has a statement on this themselves, and I think it's instructive to at least read a couple lines of this, because it really gives you the reason. Because I know there's a lot of libertarians, some of them are saying, why the heck are they giving Trump a platform at the Libertarian Party Convention? I mean, he's not a libertarian, clearly. So, why are they doing that? And we saw some of this as well with the California Libertarian Convention. They had RFK Jr. and Cornel West and Jill Stein there. And I know there were some people who felt a little put off about that as well, giving them a platform there. But what they said is essentially that members of the Libertarian Party will share a list of their top 10 issues with President Trump in advance of the convention, hoping to make an impact on the policy positions of a past and possibly future president. And Angela McArdle, who is the president, I guess, of the Libertarian Party, says, for 50 years, we've been trying to get our candidates on the stage with major party POTUS candidates, and we've finally succeeded in bringing one to our stage. We will do everything in our power to use this incredible opportunity to advance the message of liberty. So this could be an interesting opportunity, I guess, just to gain some attention to the party, and hopefully we don't get a lot of people all of a sudden putting on MAGA hats at the Libertarian Convention, but it does sound like a kind of an interesting opportunity here. What do you guys think about it?
Tim, go.
Oh, okay. I'm very much in favor of Trump or any former president speaking at a Libertarian Convention. I think that's great. We need a little more of that kind of thing. Now, again, and in keeping with my principles of association with people that you may not agree with in the quest to share ideas, I think this is a great opportunity to pardon me, I got to get rid of the cat here just a sec. To share ideas. And hey, if we're
Tim, that seemed a little bit like grab them by the.
Oh,
never mind.
Yeah,
Sorry, couldn't pass that up.
In this case, the entire critter was in that case. Anyway, and so if we're going to have an influence, just like when you trade, in other words, now that we no longer trade with Russia, how do we have any kind of influence on them? We don't. It's gone. Any hope for any kind of influence. It doesn't mean you got to like them if you're going to buy their products, or if they're going to take their money to buy yours. We do that every single day. We buy products from people who we don't agree with. We just don't realize it. It's just because it's all hidden in the product, the way the product is assembled and how it's brought to market. And so this is similar to that. I think that this is a good thing. Now, yeah, I mean, I can see through. He's just doing it, and we're only 1%. I mean, it's like he's digging deep if he's coming up there looking for votes, because we don't have much to offer. But and that's why he's doing it. So I see through that. But hey, if he turns some people into MAGA people that would normally vote for the 1% libertarian guy, okay, more power to him. I mean, it's a competition for ideas, and I'm not afraid to have him or a Joe Biden or anybody else come in and talk to us and share ideas with us. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, well, I basically agree with what Tim have said, that Well, from my perspective, of course, I'm a conservatarian. I don't think Trump is a conservative, and I don't think he's a libertarian.
No,
But that doesn't.
you are correct.
Yes, but that does not mean that we should not talk to him, or he talk to us. And it gets back to our whole my thought that started this show. People think they have some right not to be offended. A lot of people find Trump a very offensive human being. All right, they're trying to shut him up right now using the courts. I mean, it's unbelievable that this is happening in this great land of ours. But I think Trump going to the libertarians is like opening a door to new ideas, both ways. Ideas for the libertarians and ideas for Trump. I mean, Trump is obviously quite set in his ways, and but I think it will do on net. I think this is a good thing that is about to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. I think it's certainly a good thing. I think it may put off certain people on the far left if they see, libertarians essentially consorting with Trump. But I think for a lot of other people, it might actually give them a little bit of a chance where they might actually, maybe we'll get some conservatives coming over to the Libertarian Party in the end. Some people watch it because they see Trump there, and maybe they hear some criticisms from the Libertarians, and maybe they actually say, hey, that actually makes sense. Why did Trump do that? Why did he lock us down? or support the lockdowns?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think if we were afraid of our ideas not being very palatable and not being the correct ideas or the right ideas, I think we're afraid, oh gosh, this guy, he might take votes away from us. That's the wrong idea. We should be thinking, hey, we might turn other people onto us by just his exposure and then their exposure through him to our ideas.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think our paramount political persona should always include the idea that whatever we believe as liberty-minded people, whatever we believe, must be open to scrutiny. If our ideas are good and if our ideas are wonderful, then it will survive scrutiny. It's like when Isaac Newton came up with the whole idea of calculus. This have survived scrutiny for 400 years. So if our ideas are so good and wonderful, then it have to be able to withstand scrutiny. And I think we should not be afraid to talk to anybody, whether it's Donald Trump, whether it's Cornel West, whether it's JFK Jr., whoever it is. We must be able to talk to them, and we must be able to exchange ideas, because in the end, I believe liberty always wins. So I'm ready to go with that.
Yeah. I like that. What did you say? Something about scrutiny. What was that term?
If our ideas are good and if our ideas are wonderful, our ideas must be able to withstand scrutiny.
Withstand. That's the word. Withstand scrutiny. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
All right.
One thing I liked about what you said too, the good ideas will last. And with Isaac Newton, we saw a lot of his good ideas lasted. His bad ideas, however, on alchemy, they didn't do too well.
Exactly. That's just the point.
People aren't right. So
yes, that's just the point. Yes.
Yeah. So I think
this is the whole point of withstanding scrutiny, Jason. You're absolutely right about what you just said. Okay, his good ideas, calculus, withstood scrutiny and have done so for 400 years. His bad ideas have gone into the garbage heap of history.
Yeah. And even his ideas, it's funny, a little bit of a digression, but even some of his ideas on Newtonian physics, even though we found out from Einstein those were a little bit off, they're still so good that engineers still train in those because they're close enough is good enough.
Yes.
So it's pretty amazing.
Yes.
So Well, speaking of some crazy ideas, I guess, like that alchemy. Well, let's talk about the sort of the alchemy chemistry going on in these campus protests around the country. So let's see here. I'm going to bring up the visual here, and let's start with talking about some of the protests that are happening at Columbia. I'm going to show sort of a series of clips and stories just to kick us off here on what this is all about, because it's happening all over the country, but Columbia, sort of, which is in New York, they started getting a lot of the attention early on. And of course, their protests wound up exploding into a takeover of one of the halls. And in fact, I have just a little bit of video that I can show in the background while we're talking here. But this is literally some video of them taking over one of the halls. I can't remember which, it's called Hamilton Hall, I guess. But you can kind of see the protesters taking over. So what started out as sort of a mostly peaceful protest eventually devolved into them taking over a building, and then the police eventually kicking them out. But anyway, so that's a little bit of the visual from there.
Sorry, Jason, real quick, could you just tell me, because I look at it different on our files. What is this? A KOL 1 or 2? What is this one?
Well, Tim, those are our videos that we'll be sharing, so don't worry about that. We'll pull those up during the show. So Leon will be pulling those up. So when I shout for KOL 1, so we're giving a little shop talk to our audience. So.
That's my only access to them. Okay.
Yeah, but this one is not one of those. This is just a background, because all we needed was a little bit of the visual to show. But as far as the protesters go, they actually shared some of their demands, and this was a little bit funny and a little bit scary, but this was apparently one of the leaders of that protest at Columbia. And so when the kids took over the building, she came out to tell them what their demands were. And Leon, we actually have a video of that. It's KOL 1. Maybe you could play her talking about their demands.
As I said, I don't have many details on the status of the autonomous protesters inside Hind Hall. What I do know is that the protesters are acting in solidarity with Quad's 3 demands for divestment, financial transparency, and amnesty. I believe they are also now demanding a commitment from Columbia not to send in NYPD or public safety, which we believe would be a grave risk to the well-being of students on this campus, including the students who are in Hind Hall right now. And they're also asking for a commitment from Columbia for food and water to be brought in. Again, these are basic things that ensure the safety of their own students.
So this was a protester that she kind of started talking. First, she talked about what their demands are. And most of these campuses, they want divestment from Israel. So any money that's going from these universities to any organizations that are in Israel, because essentially the background of this is they would like to put a stop to Israel's actions against the Palestinians in Gaza. So we've talked about that before on the show, and so I don't want to get too far into that, but essentially a lot of people think that maybe Israel is potentially being too aggressive now, and they certainly think that. And that's they don't like seeing any of our funds going to that. But she touched upon something kind of funny too at the end of that, and she talked about the fact that they also are demanding food, and this is kind of what has brought in some of the derision to this. And so maybe we could play the second clip, KOL 2, because this is where the reporters start questioning him about that.
Why should the university be obligated to provide food to people who've taken over a building?
Well, first of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that there was a request that food and water be brought in, unless I misunderstood.
To allow it to be brought in. I mean, well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you? If the answer is no, then you should allow basic, I mean, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like, could people please have a glass of water?
But they did put themselves in that very deliberately in that situation and in that position. So it seems like you're sort of saying, we want to be revolutionaries, we want to take over this building, now would you please bring us food and water? And
nobody's asking them to bring anything. We're asking them to not violently stop us from bringing in basic humanitarian aid.
They're stopping the delivery of food?
We are looking for a commitment from them that they will not stop it
but
violently.
They haven't stopped it yet. I don't know to what extent it has been attempted, but we're looking for a commitment.
So they went from, I guess, taking a stand for the people of Gaza to suddenly saying that, hey, and by the way, we need you to bring us food and water. And then they were informed that nobody was stopping them from getting food and water. And it turned into, I guess, a demand that, well, we just want an assurance that nobody will stop us. But, you know, first I'll get your guys' take on it, because there was something else that came up in that as well. But this was, you know, kind of funny, and everybody's sort of making fun of this gal now for that around the internet.
Jason, before we get too deep into the discussion, I want to say something, I think, in fairness to the Israel side of this, okay? Israel is not going after the Palestinian people. Israel is going after Hamas, who is a terrorist organization. So I just want to be clear about that, okay? Tim, go ahead, please.
Okay. In the fog of war, there are casualties.
Yes.
A lot. A lot.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I get it. I remember World War II. We weren't exactly trying to kill the German people, but we sure killed a bunch of them when we carpet bombed their cities. But anyway,
Yes.
Here we are.
And in Japan too, when they dropped the atomic bombs in Nagasaki.
Yeah. Not to mention a couple of atomic bombs that blew the heck out of a lot of just regular old starving, by the way, Japanese people on their last legs. But anyway, so I don't know if, this gal maybe just likes her 15 minutes of fame more than anything else, but she's saying, so if it's the reality, and I don't know, I'm not there, I don't know. But if the reality is that they are not asking for McDonald's to come over and bring them food and water. If that's they're asking for their own suppliers of food and water that they have coming to them of their own accord to be allowed to come in and give them food and water by the people surrounding it, I guess the people that let people in and out. If they're asking for that without being harassed or stopped violently or whatever, and that is not even happening. In other words, if everybody's coming and going with the food and the water, and she's just saying, gee, I hope everybody allows us to continue giving the food and water, then she looks pretty ridiculous in that she's only doing it for the 15 minutes of fame. But if she's got a legitimate beef in that people are being stopped from supplying their, like, I'm protester A, and my family member A is trying to bring me food and water.
Yeah. Well, remember, Tim, she started out by saying they were demanding that the school bring them food and water, and then she started when he started questioning her. Then she started saying, "Oh well, just don't stop us from getting food and water." And then they said, "Nobody's stopping you from getting food and water." I want to guarantee that nobody will stop us.
Yeah, so it's going into the weeds after that point, right? So what did she mean? Did she want free food and water? So there you go. And so Leon, that's
well, I have a problem here. Okay. So these little young punks, that's what they are. they decide that they're going to be protesting. They're going to fight the man. They're going to fight the system. So they decide where they're going to take over a building. They're going to set up tents on the people's on the people's property and all this sort of things. And that's another issue about those tents. Okay, we'll talk about that. They're going to do all of these things. So you now have decided, well, you know what? Oh my goodness gracious, I am a revolutionary. I'm going to raise my fist and I'm going to fight the man. And when you're going to fight the man now, what you decide? Oh, could you please bring me some water while I'm fighting the man? Could you please bring me a little bit of food while I'm fighting the man? Oh, come on. For crying out loud. This is what these little pompous little snowflakes try to do. They try to go off on their tangents wherever they are and stuff. Fine. Some of their protests is constitutionally protected. I have no problem. But don't say if you decide to go exercise your right of free speech and your and peaceable assembly, if you're exercising that right, don't tell me I have to pay for that or the administration of the university have to pay for that. No, forget that crap. And when I say pay for it, I mean all of it, even including transporting it to the side of their little, I'm going to raise my fist against a man. None of that nonsense. No, these snowflakes need to learn a lesson, quite frankly.
Well, I did want to point out, though, as a libertarian, I at least I applaud them for having the courage to stand up and say something. I think they've gone way beyond, as we're going to see in a lot of these different clips, upon just standing up to say something, because, I think, it's important that we stand up to voice our opinions when we don't agree with it's certainly the government. And, if it's a private entity, I mean, we all have free speech, so we can say that. I think what we're going to show in a lot of these videos is that they've gone a little bit beyond that, simply peaceful protesting. But, as a libertarian, though, I think we should always applaud truly peaceful protesting. And at the point where we get to, maybe if the government is using violence against us, then maybe at some point it requires a little bit of pushback in the protesting, but that's not what's happening here.
Jason, the Constitution says peaceably assemble. Okay? This is not what we are seeing on these campuses.
Sure. No, and I agree with you about that. But on the other hand, remember when I said, if the government is using violence, remember our founding fathers at some point pushed back against those guys who wrote the Constitution at some point pushed back. But that's not what we're seeing here. I definitely agree with you as far as, them being pushed on by King George or anything like that. But there is a point I wanted to draw your attention to, though, and that's that when she spoke, she talked about not wanting their food to be stopped violently by coming in. And essentially, well, what would the police be doing? They're not like beating down anybody that they see carrying food. They're going to stop them. And what you're going to see in a lot of these clips is that's exactly what the protesters are doing to people who are trying to get into the campus. They are stopping them from getting into the campus. So it's really interesting to me that they characterize it as violence if police stop food from coming into them, which apparently they weren't even doing. But they were actually stopping a lot of people from coming into the campus and coming and going. And we're actually a lot like the protesters on freeways that we saw back in the BLM riots and protests, where we saw people literally stopping all of the traffic on the freeway. And
I hate to interrupt, Jason. I hate to interrupt. We have a public access break.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. So, yeah, if you're watching us on public access, the conversation will continue. So you can check us out online, and we'll hope to see you there. So back to the show.
Yes.
So that's just something I wanted to bring up. There was one other thing I wanted to show too, Leon. And if you look at the picture of these protesters, and maybe you can bring back the visual again. They're all trying to doll themselves up to show solidarity with, I guess, Hamas by wearing these different keffiyehs or whatever I can't remember exactly what they call them, but this guy would not exactly be accepted by Hamas. Showing his belly button with the midriff. That's it really is kind of wild, the amount of, I guess, disconnect that a lot of these protesters seem to have with the causes that they're connected to as well. They don't seem to, I mean, I could see if this guy was just wearing his normal clothes and he was saying, hey, I don't think what Israel's doing is cool, but he's trying to associate with people who would probably beat the heck out of him if they saw him.
No. Let's be clear, not beat the heck out. They'll throw him off a building. I am not joking about this. Okay?
Yeah.
This is I hate to say this, but this is absolutely true. This guy, from his presentation here, I would assume he walks the whatever, okay? But he will not survive. He will not survive in the Gaza Strip right now. He will not.
Let's just say they're not very tolerant there of breaking out a uniform. Let's put it that way.
Okay, let's put it that way. That's fine.
Yes. I just have a question because I don't know what they are in solidarity with, if it's Hamas, a terrorist group, or if it's the Palestinian people. So, Jason, if you know what they are thinking in their heads, or Leon, if you know for sure what they're thinking in their heads, who they're showing solidarity to, is it Hamas, a terrorist organization, or is it the Palestinian people? Do you know? Does any of us know what they're thinking in their heads? Yes or no?
I think most of them have. Oh, sorry. You go ahead, Leon. Well, I was just going to say, I think most of them have certainly made statements that they're supporting the Palestinian people, but some of them have also said, there have been statements where some of them have said things like, that they support Hamas and they support Hamas rockets. And there's been, in some specific cases, we saw some of these protests that happened in other countries where they were literally saying gas the Jews, in some of these groups. So it's not like this is just, far out claim that some of them certainly are aligning, with some of these.
Okay, but the bottom line is we don't know what these three students or whoever they are, what they're thinking, who they're showing with wearing that Kafka or whatever it's called, and and whatever. So we don't know, and this is the thing we saw on January 6th. And here it's the inflammatory verbiage used by the media. So these are pro-terrorists, whereas in January 6th, they were insurrectionists. And so this is why I do not like to watch mainstream news, because of the inflammatory verbiage used to segregate people into these little columns. You're a terrorist. You're basically, you're a bad guy. And you're a good guy, and you saw it at January 6th, and you see it here. And there may have been some people instigating things January 6th, and there may have been some instigators here that are pro Hamas. Yeah, I get it. I get that. But I don't like the inflammatory lump them all into a single category thing.
Okay. Well, let's. Okay. Go ahead, Leon, real quick, and I wanted to move into the next part.
I wanted to address this question that Tim had just a little bit. Okay. Now, again, I have no problem with peaceful protests. Okay, even though I may disagree with a lot of it. Okay, I have no problem with it. Okay, whether it was the BLM or this nonsense that's going on the campus. If it's peaceful, I have no problem with it. I'll defend their right to peaceful protests. However, there's a chant that is going around that is very common among these people. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Now, I don't care what anybody tell me, that's a genocidal claim. Hamas, okay, who started this war, okay, their charter says very clearly their goal is to annihilate the Jewish people. It says so. I'm not making this thing up. You can make a lie out of me very easily. It's online. So
sure.
If these people are aligning themselves with that chant, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, I don't support their protesting, because that is incitement of violence.
Well, see, Leon, this is one of those things we talked about before, too, and that's that.
I know.
Yeah, I'm sure for some people, they definitely have that on their mind, but there's probably an awful lot of them who are thinking, well, from the river to the sea, that would be great if Palestine were free. I mean, it's not like, they're necessarily all imagining genocide. And that's why we have to be a little bit careful when the words are not specific. What exactly does it mean? Because otherwise somebody could say, hey, I know what it means when you said that. I mean, remember when those campus students back in some of the early days of Trump, when he first got elected, they were trying to say one of those universities, everybody was racist because they were giving some people were giving the okay sign. It's like, I know what that means, you know, and the problem is a lot of different people could actually be thinking something different. And that's exactly why we need that freedom of speech, unless it's absolutely clear that they're literally calling for violence against a certain people. And it's absolutely clear that that's what they're doing. So I would push back, I guess, on that to say, hey, if they say something that I think I know what it means, then I've got to stop it, because that would give an awful lot of ammunition to people like Joe Biden and shutting people like us down on the internet.
Well, while I will admit there's a lot of gray area in this. Okay, I mean, even the statement from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Now the river is the Jordan River, and the sea is the Mediterranean Sea that they are speaking about. I would admit there's some gray area in there where there might be issues of free speech if you try to shut that down. But I cannot see how this Palestine will be free without the destruction of the Jewish people. I just can't see it.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe some of these people are living in fantasy land and they imagine everybody living there in harmony. I don't know. But, you know, even then, if let's say they said, hey, we think there should be a one state solution and everybody should have voting rights. Well, that's going to kind of go badly, I think, for the Israelis as well. But I don't think we would say that they can't say that, because we know how that's going to end up, right? I mean, that's literally a political statement. So, yeah, so that's kind of the way I think I would jump on that. But, you know, I did want to get to the way some of the schools are handling the protests now, because we got a lot of things I wanted to touch on, and we're only in the very beginning of the topic. So, Leon, maybe you could bring up the visual. So as far as how the schools are handling this, so here's an article from NBC News, and it claims both Jewish and pro-Palestinian students are claiming that Columbia officials are discriminating against them. So this isn't really completely one-sided, I guess. You know, you've got people who really don't think that they're being addressed properly on both sides. So I just wanted to show that. And this is becoming a big issue too, because as these protests are going on, it's creating a lot of issues on how they're running their day-to-day operations on the campus. And this article talks about how the Southern California colleges are trying to figure out how to deal with this. And we actually have some video from some news from a news crew on this. So I wanted to show that because this really gives you a flavor of what's happening in practice on these mostly peaceful protests. So Leon, could you play KOL 3?
Can you move this thing from my face? Let me go. Let me pass. I'm trying to get to the library.
We were there as a group of Jewish UCLA students attempted to access Powell Library.
This is what they do to students.
An area blocked off for a pro-Palestinian encampment in Royce Quad.
That's what we're met with.
Wait, so are they allowed to go in?
They're allowed to.
They're allowed to go in, but not us?
They're not even students. I tried to walk through, and one's like, you can't record me, I'm not a student. This is day in the life of a UCLA Jewish student.
Asher Taxon is a freshman public affairs student at UCLA.
It's scary. Being a Jewish student at UCLA it's not safe right now.
Taxon, along with his Jewish classmates, say they have been faced with challenges since the pro-Palestinian rally that started last Thursday.
The university isn't protecting us at all. We voiced our complaints, we voiced our concerns, and we're getting denied. We're not even being acknowledged.
So that's kind of what's happening, at least from the people who are just trying to access the school, just normal students. We also have a video that gets the perspective of some of the protesters there. So, Leon, could you play KOL 4?
Murray is a grad student at UCLA taking part in the pro-Palestinian sit-in.
For security purposes, cannot let in agitators. We have gone through an immense amount of harassment by pro-Israeli groups and outside groups and through the counter-protesters, and constant harassment day and night. And it's just a glimpse into understanding what people on the ground in Gaza, what people for 75 years of Palestine have experienced.
It doesn't make any sense to me that on our campus, students can simply intimidate you by just standing there, putting their arms out and lock you. Yeah, I don't have passionate feelings about this issue at all. I just want to get to class.
So that kind of gives you a sense, at least, of what's happening on the ground here, and it's not just in, this isn't just one school. I also have a short video too of a professor being locked out because he was a Jewish professor and they didn't want to let him in, and this was in a college in New York. This KOL 5. Maybe you could play that one, Leon.
You gotta talk to... Cass, are we not gonna let the media in? Is the university keeping the media out? This is the COO of the university. Are we not letting the media in? What? Can you back up, please? My card has been deactivated? Why? Can you back up, please? Wait. Everybody, my card has been deactivated. This is Cass Holloway, the COO. This is Gerald Lewis. They were in the meeting where I asked them if Hamas is a terror organization, and they couldn't say that it is a terrorist organization. Why? I'm a professor. Why can I?
Shy,
No. Speak out loud so the media.
Shy, we are willing to take you to the math lawn.
No, I am a professor here.
Alumnus. We have a
Whoa, everybody quiet. I am a professor here. I have every right to be everywhere on campus. You cannot let people that support Hamas on campus and me, a professor, not go on campus. Let me in now.
So that was another instance of somebody just being blocked, this time not by the protesters, but by the campus administration, essentially not letting in somebody that they considered unfriendly to the protest. Not that he was going to do violence, just simply that, he had ideas that they weren't happy with. And, I kind of like to show this little clip too, because this is Ami Horowitz. We've shown him, we talked about him with voter ID stuff, and he had a video where it was quite funny, where he went around and interviewed black people about whether or not they carried ID, because for some reason Democrats thought that they needed special protections, I guess, for voting. And we talked about that on the show. Well, so Ami Horowitz is stirring up trouble again on this, and he tried to get on one of these New York campuses as well. And this is what happened to him. They play KOL 6.
I'm Ami Horowitz, and there are protests breaking all across the country on our campuses. These are people who purport to support the Palestinians, but in reality, they simply have a base hatred for Israel. They also have a hatred for the United States. So I'm here on the campus of City College of New York, where there's an encampment and a protest. I'm simply going to go into the middle. I'm going to wave the American flag without saying a word. Let's see what happens.
So that's how he set it up, and clearly he has a predefined position about who the other people are. Whether or not you share that or not, he was simply going to test the situation and see if he could get in. So it was a little bit long video, and it was a lot hard to follow a lot of it because it was quite tumultuous. But I cut it down, and here is an excerpt from that video of him going in there. So this is KOL 7, and you can see what happened to him when he tried to go in there. And
I'm an American. I'm an American. I can do what I want. Don't touch me.
Yeah.
Listen to me. Don't choke me. What the fuck? I'm a fucking American. I want to go to campus.
You can go to hell.
Stop. Yeah, man. I'm not leaving. You can punch me all you want. I'm not leaving.
حبيبي
Hey, you just fucking choke me? Get off of me. You fucking choke me? Don't fucking choke me? You fucking headbutted me, motherfucker.
Stop, yo, what the hell is
I'm not fighting.
You gotta stop.
I'm not fighting.
Don't hurt him.
I'm not fighting. You guys are punching me. You guys are fucking punching me.
Guys.
Excuse me. They just punched me and choked me.
Stop this guy, man. I'm gonna get him out of here. Walk back.
They just punched me and choked me.
Take him out.
Hey, they're punching me. What am I doing?
Get the fuck over here. Let's go.
Dude, what the hell?
Let's go.
I'm trying to go on campus.
Shut up.
Do you see me do anything? Okay, we are not in America anymore.
so I think it was instructive because it showed essentially him, regardless of how you thought he was acting, he had every right to be on campus, just like those people had the right to hold their signs on campus. And he wound up being the one who was arrested, and he claimed he was taken to the police station at the end. So this is kind of what's happening on these campuses. So and how it's playing out. So what do you guys think about all that?
Jason, if this protest was about black students being targeted on campus. Do you think the media would be silent about that? Do you think if a black student was walking across campus and could not get to the library, you think the media would be silent about that? Or if a professor who happened to be black was locked out of wherever, I don't know exactly what hall or what place he was locked out of, but he was locked out of something. He's a full professor on the campus and locked out. Do you think the media will be silent about that? I bet you not. I'll bet you my house they would not have been. But because it's Jewish students and because it's a Jewish professor, oh, it's okay to hate the Jews. It's okay to gas the Jews. It's okay to call for the genocidal destruction of the Jews. That's all okay. And people, too many of us in society, think these things are okay because it's those evil Jews. And this is a problem in our society. And I'll go back to that chant. You see that chant? From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. It's a genocidal call to the destruction of the Jewish people. And Hamas has this in their charter. And we have to stop supporting Hamas. And this is exactly what these people are doing. They are supporting Hamas. It's okay to disagree about the policies that Israel has. No problem. Let's argue about it. You and I could argue about it right now. I have no problem with that. But when you start a call for the destruction of people, we are not talking about free speech anymore. We are talking about something else.
Now, Tim, do you have any thoughts? Or
Well, I don't. Yeah, because I just don't know these protesters shoving people away because I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to think they saw his American flag, so they immediately saw him as a pro-Israeli, Israel or pro-American type guy, and not one of them, and so they decided he's not going to get into the. Okay, correct. Is why are you laughing, Leon? I'm simplifying it. Am I stating the obvious? I'm really good at
probably. Yeah.
Okay. So how that immediately translates to they're not with us in our opposition to the United States government giving arms and ammunition to Israel. And then of course I want to go back to the debt to GDP ratio differences between the two countries. Okay, if Israel is God's chosen nation, then they've got an advantage already. Okay, and so they have God on their side. And if you truly believe that, then why are we required to give them money in the form of debt to bomb people that they're fighting? Okay, why? And so if these, I don't know if these protesters are of the, yes, I want all Jewish people, the complete Jewish state to be wiped off the map, or if they're just against the United States and apparently these
well, and Tim, I think
institutes.
Yeah. Well, and Tim, I
supporting it. Okay.
Well, and I think I get your point, but I guess to the larger point of the protest, and I certainly think, like you said, Leon certainly thinks that most of these guys are kind of pro-Hamas, and you're thinking, that, hey, a lot of these guys are standing up because they don't like our government funding Israel. Okay, but I guess the bigger part, though, is on the protest, because I don't want to get too far into the whole war. We'll never get out of that. We'll be stuck as long as they are stuck in this issue, which is decades. If we don't have that long on this show. so
try to push
yes. But as far as the protest goes, like you're saying, hey, look, they're upset that this guy is, coming in with an American flag and what that represents to him. But the issue is, do they have the right to stop him? That's the issue, right?
No.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you're going to simplify it that far, no, they do not. No matter what they're thinking, it's just that Leon right away goes to, they want to kill all Jews, and I'm going to. I don't care what they're thinking. They're not in the right to stop this guy from going to the library, whether or not he has an American flag.
Tim, okay, maybe that my statement is sound like hyperbole, okay? But I'll go back to what I said. On October the 7th, Hamas started this war. Israel, I'm not going to go into war, Jason. Don't get scared. Don't get scared.
we don't want to restart it.
We don't want to start it. But Israel responded. War is nasty business. So what are these people talking about when they keep saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free? And that exactly corresponds with Hamas's charter, which calls for the destruction of the Jewish state and the Jewish people. So what are we talking about? If they are chanting this thing on the campuses, what are they talking about?
I guess the main issue is, I mean, this comes down to a few different things. One is, let's say if it was a private club. If it was a private club, I think we're all, being liberty-minded people, we're all cool with them saying whatever they want to in a private club, right? I mean,
yes.
It's so there'd be no issue there. So some of these are state-run colleges, and some of them are private colleges that this is happening on. And in the case of even the private colleges, they get an awful lot of government funding, one way or another, through research grants or through the funding of all of these student loans that Biden wants to pay off for every kid out there is learning how to protest.
You want us to pay it over. You want us to pay it off. You want us to pay it off. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
And one thing about these protests that I didn't know about, I did not know about how much money these like, what was it? Colombia. Yeah, but I can't remember if it's 30 or 40, but it's 30 or 40 billion dollars that they're investing in Israel and other places, I imagine. And I'm thinking, if they have 30, 40 billion extra dollars, why don't they just reduce their tuition costs a little and give some of it back to the students? I thought that was what it was all about. But no, they're investing. I guess they're trying to make a return on their investment, and but it's like, how about give back to the future students and make the tuition lower? Well, what about that? Because now then we will not be on the hook for these future government loans, so people can go to these schools. I don't know.
Yeah,
that's just weird.
Well, anyway, the main thing I wanted to pull into before we show the next thing is that this is kind of almost like a property rights issue, right? I mean, the issue of peaceful protesting, in my mind, when we had this discussion before, it was allowing people to peacefully pass as peaceful protesting. And what we're seeing here is these protesters think it's not peaceful if you don't allow their food to pass, to them, and quite frankly, I don't think these people like Ami Horowitz felt it was very peaceful when he tried to walk on the campus, and they stopped him from going on the campus as well. So I think that's the start of being, I guess, non-peaceful protesting. But when you start to get into confusion around this, then essentially this leads to violence, because everybody thinks that their rights are being violated when you don't have clear rights established here. And I want to show what happened the day after that video was taken on UCLA, where you saw those Jewish students trying to get through and they were stopped, and that Jewish protester who was interviewed that very night, and this is about a week ago, this is what happened, and this is KOL 8. Can you show the video, Leon?
About 10:45 last night, that's when about 150 to 200 pro-Israel demonstrators arrived and faced off with the demonstrators inside the pro-Palestine encampment. They tried to remove some of the barricade. We're talking about those wooden boards, those pallets, and all heck broke loose. There were fights. People were using bats. We saw people with some serious head injuries, beaten and bloodied, and they were just going at it. And no police were in sight. There was no one. Now, we understand that campus security, campus police may have arrived, but then they quickly retreated. UCLA then requesting that LAPD come in, but that was after the fact, after the fight. Now, we heard from some students, both Palestinian and Israeli students, telling us they came in peace, but the truth is there was a lot of violence. Now, we're told the violence went on for about 3 hours before police intervened.
So 3 hours. So campus security showed up, and then they ran off, and they allowed this to happen for 3 hours. About a couple hundred people brawled on UCLA's campus over this, and this is absolutely absurd. I mean, I mean, to me, this is what happens when you don't clearly define people's property rights and their rights of where they're allowed to pass, where they're not, and you just allow it to be a free for all. This is where it goes to. And what do you guys think about that?
Well, it's a public university. Okay, so we don't even have to worry about government funding in this case. It's a public university. Okay, and these people setting up in campus without any sort of permits or whatever and that kind of stuff, they set up and they're gonna stop Jewish students from getting to class, getting to wherever they want to go and that kind of stuff. This is a public institution. Okay, so this should not be allowed to continue. The problem we have on these campuses is the administrators agree with the pro-Hamas side. They agree with it. This is why we had Claudine Gay going before Congress when they asked her, well, what is calling for the genocide of the Jewish people? Is that a violation of Haber's policies? She said it depends on the context. That's why she said that, because the administrators agree with this sort of thing. They do. And this is why these things are permitted to continue, even though, look at Colombia. Well, Colombia is not a public institution. But look at what happened in Colombia. It took them 3 weeks before they called in the police. And now they have canceled their graduation. Now just imagine that. They are folded to the pro-Hamas crowd. That's what they have done. And it's happening all over the country.
Yeah, and in fact, we actually have a article here real quick. Can you pull up the screen real quick? Apparently, there's at least 3 colleges that have already canceled or they're diverting their graduation ceremonies to other places. And of those, let's see, on the list, there's let's see, what is it? Columbia University, University of Southern California, and I saw another one on another article, Barnard, because this article is about 5 or 6 days stale. So there may be more too at this point, but this is, a big problem. So it's, can you imagine paying and going to school for 4 or 5 years and spending, getting yourself in debt that you're hoping Joe Biden will pay off about $1,000 or so, and then you can't even have a graduation ceremony at the end. So anyway, yeah.
Okay, here's another thing to imagine. Imagine a bunch of pro-Trump people setting up camp in front of some public building somewhere and just taking over. Yeah, would it go on for months and months or weeks and weeks? Would they allow that? I mean, not that I'm a Trump supporter, but
it's a good question, though. It's a good question.
Yeah,
yes.
Is it just about what side you're on? Is that what it's all about?
Well, I would say one thing that's clearly not quite peaceful protesting, but it was absolutely within the form that was accepted for a whole year that society had moved the Overton window with the BLM marches. So, I mean, we actually saw a whole area of Seattle that was the chop zone that was just given over, and they told you go police yourselves, and a bunch of people died in that. Because they literally let a bunch of people, yahoos with AKs, who were part of some gang, I think, become the police of that area. So,
I think that chap was run by a convicted felon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So.
Anyway, in my world, it's wrong. It's not peaceful to take over buildings and to take over property that's not yours. I don't care if it belongs to the public. I don't care if it's private. It's not your property. So therefore, you can go there temporarily and get a bullhorn and say river to the sea or whatever you want to say, but you cannot set up camp especially when you don't even supply your own food very well, apparently. Which is another analogy to January 6th. It's like January 6th, these so-called insurrectionists came with absolutely no command and control, no ability to communicate with each other or outside.
Well, except for the FBI plants that were in the audience. They were the command and control.
Yeah, they were command and control, right? Yeah, if anything was, exactly. That's a good point. But anyway, so calling it an insurrection, maybe it was a setup, maybe it was a false flag, but in insurrection it was not, and for all those reasons, they had no arms, and everything. So anyway, but
that's a really good point, Tim, though, bringing up that definition thing, because like Leon was saying, he knows exactly what to the river to the sea means. And I tell you, AOC knows exactly what those protesters meant. They all wanted to date her and they wanted to kill her. That's what she thought afterwards. And she would tell you that she's dead serious, that's what she knew they meant.
Did you use the word they all wanted to rape her or kill her?
No, well, in her words, date. They all want to date her.
Date her? Oh my God.
So
well, okay.
Well, but as far as damage goes, so let me show you a little bit about at least one place, the damage, because it was a good point bringing up January 6th and some of the damage we saw there. This is what the students did at Portland State University to their library. They were there 3 days, and they wound up trashing the place entirely before the police ran them out. And this is a series of pictures from the Oregonian of what they did to the building inside. So they essentially graffitied everything. They brought in all kinds of waste, and they painted over books. They pitched tents, and they graffitied over just about every wall inside the place. So it's just picture after picture of mayhem that was occurring inside the library. And I don't imagine this was, hopefully this wasn't one of their English lit, students there doing this sign there. It says, bugger the tankards, mankind be something or other. But anyways, these are all of the, damage that these people did to this building. So anyways, yeah, it's not something where these people are just going through and what we would all hope be respectful protesters, and not just destroy everything. I don't know what they get for, I guess, destroying their own library, as far as, supporting Palestinians. It's hard to see the connection there. Anyways, you guys have any thoughts on the damage that's been done in some of these places?
It just shows you how idiotic these snowflakes are. Okay, it just shows you how unbelievably idiotic. But notice in that article, they're calling them protesters, not rioters. Okay, not insurrectionists. They're calling them protesters. The protesters did this. The protesters did that. Not rioters, not people who vandalize place or nothing like that. This is just like the mostly peaceful protests we had during the summer of 2020. It's the same damn nonsense we're seeing right here. Okay, these people are criminals and they should be treated as such.
Did they use the word insurrectionists?
No, they did not. I'm saying they don't. The media is not calling them that. Yeah. They're still calling them protesters, even though they have done all this damage Jason is showing here.
Yeah. Okay. So I get it. So when rioters and arsonists and maybe not arson, but vandals vandalize things, they're protesters. But when other people do on the other side of the coin do other things, then they're evil insurrectionists and so on. Is that how this works? Is this how the world works now?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I understand because I'm slow, real slow.
Well, and by the way, the unlike the protesters on January 6th who only held the building for a few hours, these guys held this library for 3 days before the police ran them out. So, and I think the Hind Hall in Columbia, that was also a couple of days, I think, before the police ran them out as well. But that said, okay, so this kind of gives you a sense of what's been going on in the protest, but it's also kind of complicated too as far as the police response that's happening in a lot of these places, because certainly that should concern libertarians as well too. Are the police overstepping their bounds? And one of the most disturbing stories I saw was one of apparently a local Fox reporter in Austin at the University of Texas in Austin. He wound up being arrested and charged, and we actually have a video of this where it looked like he was, well, see for yourself. To me, this looks like a massive overreaction by the police with this guy. This is KOL 9.
Who are you with?
I'm with Fox 7.
Fox 7?
Yeah,
What's your name?
Carlos.
Carlos, what do you think of this?
I think it's, they were pushing me, and they say that I hit an officer. I didn't hit an officer. They were pushing. You know what I mean? They were pushing me.
Has this ever happened?
No, it's never happened to me. You know what I mean? I was just covering things. And
did you tell them you were the press?
Yeah, I told them that I was the press.
So there you have. This is, and of course in Texas, they have taken a much harder stance against the protesting than in some of these places, in some of the other places around the country. But clearly, that reporter was trying to get his camera in on the action, and they threw him to the ground. And so to me, that I guess things can get, like you said, Tim, a little bit foggy in a war here, which that looked almost like a war zone there. But it's still the way. Obviously he had a camera and he was obviously press, and the way he was treated was pretty alarming. What do you guys think of that?
Well, just there's not a whole lot of fog when the target is obviously carrying a camera around and not a sign, and he's got a press. He had some kind of badge on him, so I'm assuming that's his press badge and so on and so forth. So that's not too foggy. That's kind of like when the Israelis bomb a bunch of people there for bringing in supplies and medical stuff and all that kind of stuff. It's not very foggy either. But this is the new world. This is our new world, and especially in Texas, which has always been kind of a big law and order, kill them first and ask questions later kind of state. It doesn't surprise me.
Okay, I used to live in Texas. So no, that's not correct. Seriously, no.
Say again.
What you just said is not correct. I used to live in Texas. Okay.
Okay.
No.
All right. Well, okay. Then maybe I was thinking about what was that school where the students all got mowed?
Uvalde.
Not that one. No, long time ago.
Kent State.
Kent State, yeah, maybe.
Oh,
yeah,
Kent State, that's in Ohio. That's in Ohio.
Maybe I got my states mixed up there. Maybe I'm thinking of Ohio, where the National Guard shoots people.
Our screaming eagle has lost his flight plan.
My navigational skills are coming into question here. But it doesn't look too good to me. What are they going to do? What are they going to charge that guy with? Carrying too big of a camera or something? What's the charge, officer? Yeah. Am I free to go?
Yeah.
Where's the victim? Where's the victim?
Battery or some kind of stuff like that, or assaulting a police officer or something like that.
Okay, maybe Texas doesn't have a reputation for being law and order, but what do you?
Well, they have a reputation for law and order, but it's not the way you describe it. Is what I'm saying.
So how do you? Sorry, I had to grab the pussy.
He's going mag on us right in front of our eyes. Getting ready for that convention.
Yeah. There goes my political career right out the window. So So how do you explain that, though, Leon? The roughing this guy up. Go ahead?
Well,
let's hear it.
Tim, we get back to the issue of the fog of war. Okay, now it's not a war that's going on in Austin, Texas. It's a very left-wing city, Austin, Texas, very left-wing. When I say left-wing, I mean left-wing. Even though Texas overall is a red state, a lot of people don't know that there are some areas that, like Harris County. I used to live in Harris County. Totally left-wing.
Well, Leon, are you saying that they're so left-wing they attacked that reporter because he's from Fox?
But the point I was going to make, though, while all that pushing and shoving was going on, whatever it is that I could have seen the cameraman could have been accidentally strike a police officer with his camera, but then the police overreacted because they thought the guy might have done it deliberately. But this is clearly an overreaction of the police, I think, personally. So in the fog of war, shall we say, quote unquote, I put it in quotes. Yes, I can see that happening. But a lot of this is all this damn nonsense is going on these campuses. The University of Texas is in Austin, very, very left-wing campus, obviously. And all of this thing is creating all of these uncertainties, the city, the campus, creating these uncertainties where things like this can happen. It was clearly an overreaction by the police, but this is just the environment that we are living in right now. We're going to find more of these things happening.
Are you giving the police a pass on this one?
Well, I mean, okay, maybe in actuality, I don't want the guy charged for what happened here because I didn't see anything that suggests it was done deliberately. So I'll give the police a pass if they'll drop the charges against the guy.
That's Damn it. I was about to make a joke, but I don't want to do it. But I accidentally pulled this guy down and basically threw him to the ground, and along with his camera. He accidentally did that. That's what you're saying.
I'm not saying accidental. It's not accidental.
You just said it.
I didn't say accidental. No, I said I'll give the police a pass. I'll give him a pass if they'll drop the charges against the guy. That's what I said. I'm not claiming that the police did this accidental. I am claiming the uncertainties that are created by by operating and functioning in a left-wing city which house a left-wing campus, horribly left-wing campus, is creating too much uncertainties. So yes, when all of this pushing and shoving going on and that kind of stuff, yeah, the police overreact. I agree. I'm not gonna disagree with that.
Well, let me introduce another factor into this. When we talk about this fog of war, there was another similar story that I thought, and this one kind of has a slightly different twist to it. So, Leon, can you bring up the visual real quick? So there's an article from the Daily Beast, and this made news all over the country, but cops slammed Emory professor's head into concrete, then charged her with battery. So that's the way the headline goes. And we actually have video of the event too. So I want to show KOL 10 so we can show kind of what happened in this incident.
Get on the ground, I said, dog! Oh my God! You're a rabid dog! Oh my God! Give me some cops! My head! Hit that tree head! You just hit my head! On the concrete! Oh my God! Oh my God! You people are fascists! You are Hitler! You are a rabid dog! Shame on you! May you never live another day! I am a professor! This is an Emory professor, everyone! I am a professor of economics!
So professor of economics. So already I feel like I'm on her side already. but
if she's teaching in a school, she's Keynesian, she's not Austrian.
Okay, maybe so. But what I wanted to what I wanted to
knock some sense into her. Now,
well, before you jump in too much, Tim, what I wanted to show about this was that here it looks pretty bad, just like the other video that we saw with the cameraman. And it's hard to imagine any justification for what we saw happen here. And of course, clearly the Daily Beast reported it that way, that cops slammed Emory professor's head. And that's exactly what it looked like on the video. Let's play KOL 11 now so we can see that clip as well.
Because this is do this all night.
We were not resisting. I barely did anything. I came here when I heard that they were arresting, cops were coming to arrest our students. And I came here and I saw a large man pinning one of our students to the ground, pressing on his neck and potentially choking him, causing life-threatening injury. And so I impulsively hit him on the head very lightly to get his attention, and they grabbed me, threw me to the ground, and arrested me.
So in that particular video, you can hear that she actually says she hit the cop in the head, even though she says she did it gently. In a melee, when another cop sees somebody hit another cop in the head, he doesn't necessarily know how hard you're hitting that person in the head.
Yeah.
And that. But this really, I mean, here you have her own admission that she did that in there, which certainly we could say, hey, look, that does seem like an overreaction, but, this is also a melee too. And I guess this does show the fog of war, right? That it's not always clear cut exactly what's happening in these situations. So anyway, I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts on that.
Well, okay, so does this lady normally go around hitting cops in the head, even gently, just tapping them on the head? Does she
doesn't matter. It does not matter.
No, it does. It does.
Why?
Because if she sees a cop beating the shit out of one of her, oh, I said that? Sorry.
But we're not on public access.
Let me rephrase. If she sees a cop beating up one of her colleagues, and
one of her students, but go ahead.
Okay, or a student. Okay, same thing. And she's going over there and getting a little exuberant, and she taps somebody on the head. She's not doing that just to be pissed off at the cop, and I just want to beat a cop. It's not it. It's she's trying to stop something an aggression, and what she is probably perceiving as over aggression by the police against somebody she knows. So she's defending somebody from police aggression. Okay, over aggression. Like if some friend of the guy with the camera watched this guy get taken down, and he went over there and tried to defend him or something. Okay, now is it good? Is it good practice to do that with cops in the vicinity? No, and we see what happens. But here's the thing that I'm a little that upsets me is that this kind of police overreaction to some of the people, not necessarily. I didn't see any of that neck thing around her. I didn't see us carrying a sign, but they'll leave the sign carriers and the pro-Hamas people alone. They'll let somebody stay in a library for 3 days. They'll do that, no problem. But they've got to go do this. Oh, they just have to overreact and throw people to the ground, and then it gets everybody else riled up. So fog of war also has to do with emotions running high. And I'm telling you what, that lady's emotions were high, and for a reason, Leon, not just because she's just a bad person. Oh, she's just an evil cop hater. When she's in trouble, she's going to call the police like everybody else.
Tim, it is very easy in hindsight to sit down and say, this was wrong, this was right, that kind of stuff. Police officers, and I'm sure you know this, they are trained that whenever there's a threat, they have to assume the worst. If anybody strikes a police officer, the police around there will always assume the worst because they don't know what is coming next. It's just like when a police officer make a simple traffic stop on the streets. They have to assume the worst. Otherwise, they won't get killed.
Yeah.
And this is what
bottom
happened.
line, I agree 100%.
Wait, let me finish my point. Let me finish my point, please. This is exactly what happened here. The woman just admitted on video that she struck the police officer. Now, she might have just tapped him on the shoulder, or she might have slapped his head or something. A police officer witnessing that, he has to assume the worst because he don't know if the next thing that woman is going to do is to pull out a gun and start shooting. He does not know. So he has to assume the worst. So if the woman is admitting she hit the police officer, I can't feel sorry for her. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I understand, and the police have to do that, and they have to make arrests when they see another, an assault, basically an assault on a police officer. They have to make an arrest, and I get that. I get all that. But the things that's really a shame is that all this stuff is continuously happening in our society now, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And eventually, what happens is the police will come in and break down your door because your gun that you own has been decided that it's illegal, and they're coming after it, and they're going to kill you if you get in their way. Okay, this is what's going to happen, Leon, as our society continues flowing downhill into tyranny, which is where it's going, and despotism. Those police officers that you hold in such high regard are going to be the people that are going to kill you.
No. Yeah.
They got the badges and they have the guns, and they're going to be the ones knocking on your door.
Tim, while I agree, he's gone.
No, he's there.
While I agree, there are instances of police officers going too far, and whenever they go too far, I totally with the idea of prosecuting them for their actions. Derek Chauvin, who killed George Floyd, I think he started off with a legitimate police action, and he went too far. He ended up in prison now for 20 years, which is fine. I have no problem with police officers being persecuted when they go too far. But you cannot have someone admitting that they struck a police officer and then don't expect a reaction on the other side. You cannot expect that. That is fantasy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I agree. And they had to make an arrest as well. I agree with that. It's just the whole thing in general is very worrisome to me, and I see this downhill slide. That's all I'm saying. So, and it's going to get. I think it's going to get. I predict it's going to get to the point where we're going to see a lot of just people just getting killed just because they had some little infraction of some little stupid law that we have a bazillion regulations. You could fill up any stadium in the United States with the regulations that we have.
Well, I think that little infraction might be wearing a MAGA hat. That's where I think it's going. So.
True. That's a good point. That could be too. That's a good point. That's a good point. Sure. Yes.
And
Ashley Babbitt was shot by a Capitol police officer, and up to now we don't know what she was supposedly doing that warranted her shooting. We don't know.
Yeah.
I've got, and we're going long. And how much longer? Because I've got a kitty cat wound that I have.
Yeah, I got the sense you were getting ready to start a protest.
Mostly peaceful. Is it going to be?
Leon was. I stayed for Leon, but what I was going to do was go get some Neosporin. And so
well, we got just a few other little topics on here, but we can keep talking. Well, believe it or not, there is a little bit more that goes to the mind of the protesters that we have some stuff on. And then to top it off, the government's overreaction to this, because they are using FISA now to spy on these people. The stuff that just passed in the House, they're using FISA to spy on these people. So, but if you need to go, me and Leon can slug it out.
I'm just going to go and I'll come back.
Okay.
I'm just going to mute my mic and I'll be right back.
Okay, so let's jump to, so clearly there's a lot of, maybe a little bit of overreaction by the police in some areas, but maybe some of it has some explanations in some areas, so it's complicated. But one of the things I think that we've also seen is off campus, when we're talking about what's going on in the minds of some of these people and what do they mean on some of these chants that they're talking about. And so I think, Leon, this one will be, get you riled up now. Yes, as you hear this. But apparently in Dearborn, Michigan, there was a rally where and maybe you could show the visual here, where there was a rally where people were literally, protesters were being trained to chant "Death to America," and there's video of this happening in the training session. So Leon, if you could play KOL 12, and then we could show what that's like being in one of these groups training sessions.
Whether they be Iranian or whatever, all right? Now, I don't drink margaritas, but we all know what a margarita is. We all know what a bar is. So you're going to say, Marg Bar. Marg Bar. Marg Bar Israel. 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 Thank you. What does that mean? So, it has two meanings, depending on who's asking. It can mean death to or down with. So, can we get a Marg Bar America? We can get a Marg Bar America. Yes, we can. Marg Bar America! Marg Bar America! Marg Bar America! Marg Bar America! Thank you.
So literally there, you just saw them all laughing about saying not just down with or death to, which it could be either one for Israel, but then you saw the crowd asking, can we put America into this? And then them all laughing along with chanting down with or death to America. Thoughts, Leon?
Well, I go back to what I said originally. Is how these things, death to America, death to Israel, from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. All of them are saying one thing, okay? They are talking about a genocidal, they are lifting up a genocidal call to destruction of the Jewish people. And of course, they want to destroy America also because America supports Israel for the most part. Joe Biden is now waffling on that because he don't like the way Israel is prosecuting the war, blah, blah, blah. Fine, okay? But the point is though, what we are seeing here is these people calling for the destruction of other human beings. And I don't think we should support any of this. I know you want to make, we want to get on the campuses and say, well, some people just don't like what is happening to the Palestinian people. Fine. If we don't like what is happening to the Palestinian people, let's talk about that. Separate from this. It's the Palestinian people in the Gaza elected that terrorist organization called Hamas, who end up killing off Fatah so that they could rule the Gaza Strip for the last 15, 20 years. Come on. We are talking about genocide here. And we cannot in any way support this. We cannot.
Well, I think, though, that as a libertarian, I would just hope, though, that we would support free speech to the extent that we're not actually physically calling for somebody to be harmed directly at that, especially in the moment. Certainly, I think when they were chanting "Gas the Jews," that and this wasn't in this particular protest, these campus protests, but this was after October 7th in Australia. And yes. I think that's probably crossing the line. I mean, that's kind of saying, everybody knows that this isn't like saying what the river to the sea means. I mean, gas chambers, it's part of history that everybody kind of knows what happened in World War II, that millions of people were put into gas chambers and shot and buried. So I think when you start saying things like that, it's pretty apparent. But to me, I kind of struggle to think most of those people who are supporting this really even completely understand what that means, I guess, to the river, to the sea. They may have a completely different meaning. So, but I think we're kind of rehashing the old stuff here. But yeah, go ahead.
No, but Jason, let me ask you something. Okay, when we hear on the campuses, this have nothing to do with this thing here. When we hear on the campuses these people talking about erasing whiteness, what do you think they mean?
Oh yeah, I mean they're clearly want to. I don't know that they necessarily want to kill white people, but they want it to disappear, I guess. Yeah. So
how are you going to erase whiteness without killing white people? What, they're going to make you guys black? What are they going to do?
I think a lot of them just want us to go away. I don't know that it's necessarily.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Where do they want you to go? Where?
Let's put it this way: if they were saying, I guess, down with white people, I would think that's a sort of a racist chant. And, like I said, private institution, I think then, that's like a private club, whatever. But if it's a public institution, I think we should have, I guess, there should probably be, I don't know, down with white people. What do you think, Tim? Should it be okay to say down with white people or down with black people?
They said erasing. Okay, let's just be clear. It's not down with white people. They said erasing whiteness.
Erasing.
Okay.
Yeah, like protest or public protest where they're trying
to... Yeah, let's just say it was a public protest. Yeah.
Well, that's not peaceful. So I don't think that is protected speech under the First Amendment, because it's not a peaceful protest. It's violent. It's talking about violence. It's inciting to violence.
I mean, I definitely think if they said kill white people, I would absolutely agree. Down with white people, I guess I could go along with that if that's what you guys are saying, that's the normal meaning. But to me, there's a little bit of vagueness to what that means, I guess. So I don't know.
It's not down. I want to say it again. It's not down with white people. They are saying erasing whiteness. I just want to know how they will accomplish that without some sort of genocide.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I can certainly see your position there, and I guess this is where it gets really hard to defend that free speech spot. But
Jason,
I noticed you were struggling. I noticed. Don't worry.
I don't think I think it's a plan, Leon. I think he is playing devil's advocate to bring the two of us together on a topic.
Well, let's put it this way. As long as the government wasn't saying it and it was just other people, I'd rather err on the side that people have the freedom to speak than to err on the side of the government telling us that they don't worry, we know what these things mean and we're going to force it on you all. So I think that, most people can be horrifyingly offended, and if we're allowed freedom of association, I think there's a way to push back on that privately without the government. But, when you allow the government to start telling us, we know what all these vague things mean, then that's where we get to having a Nina Jankowicz essentially monitoring everything we're doing online. So
while I share your fear of government intervention in any sort of episodes of speech, I do share your fear of that. But we have to look at the words and the actions of people, and then we can decide whether this speech should be protected or not. I think there's enough on the campuses going on right now that suggests that words and actions are not protected. Those actions and those words are not protected by the First Amendment of our Constitution.
Okay. Well, I think that we'll have to leave that one there. But when we talk about where the government is on this, I think that raises another ugly specter in this whole thing. And don't worry, we don't have video on this, but we do have a few visuals to show you. So one of the things that happened as these protests started up is right away it got political. So politicians started jumping in, and I think the Republicans realized this is a big potential weakness for the Democrats, in the sense that the people who are these protesters would generally be considered as siding with the Democrats in the past, and they are saying that they're probably not going to vote for Biden, a lot of them, this time around, because they don't like Biden's stance on this Israel-Palestine conflict. And so the Republicans are launching probes into the anti-Semitism on the campuses. So this article was out at the end of April, and then the craziness that followed that is that the Republicans literally passed an anti-Semitism bill. So this is where now they're going to start telling us, that this particular group of people has to have special protection. So it's not just the protections that all of us would think we have about being attacked by our skin color or our race. They're saying now they needed a special law now to determine when people are essentially being hateful against Jewish people. And the most disturbing thing is that this law that just passed, with the deciding vote of the Speaker of the House, Johnson. So this was sort of bipartisan, but more Republicans than Democrats on this thing. The definition of anti-Semitism that's used in this bill is actually not even defined by them. It's defined by the Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. And in that's like not even a body that's in this country. Okay. And so they are sitting here and they're saying that, these things could be used to determine if this is, I guess, new hate speech or other things like that. And they say accusing the Jews as people or Israel as a state of inventing or exaggerating the Holocaust. So suddenly now you wouldn't be free to say that, because that could be determined that you're exercising hate if you decide. If you deny the fact, scope, or mechanisms that intentionality of the genocide of the Jewish people at the hands of the National Socialist Germany and its supporters and accomplices during World War II. So now suddenly you're not free at this point to express yourself that maybe you don't think that a Holocaust happened for whatever reason. That's not me, but I don't think that we should have the government telling us exactly what we have to believe in these cases. And of course, there's this whole list denying the Jewish people the right to self-determination by claiming that the existence of the state of Israel is a racist endeavor. So now you aren't free at this point because of this new law to apparently say that you think that maybe Israelis are racist. This is scary stuff. And this has raised a lot of eyebrows. The ACLU is a little bit upset that they're using these now. Not only did they just put in this new law, but they're also the FISA thing that just passed that we talked about with Thomas Massey trying to get some changes in there that he couldn't to force warrants for American citizens, if they're going to spy on American citizens through this. They're already using this apparently on the protesters. So to essentially the government to spy on their communications and stuff. So this is some scary stuff. And of course, this is an article from the American Prospect saying that pro-Israel groups pushed for warrantless spying on the protesters. So that's about this. So what do you guys think about this? I mean, this is kind of scary stuff. Like you were kind of saying, Tim, about this slide of getting too friendly with giving these powers to the police. Well, here they go again over these campus protests and this conflict. Suddenly we see this power grab again, especially after Republicans were just so upset that they used these powers against Trump of all people when he was running, and now here we go again, handing all these new powers to the government. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, well, Exhibit A, here we go. At least in my case. And then here's the thing I really wonder about: how much of these protesters are anti-Semitic, and how many of them, or how much of them, are anti-Zionist? I mean, it's one thing to protest the actions of the Israeli government, and another thing to protest the existence of a whole classification of people by race or religion. So. From what I've seen of the protesters, they are the majority of them. There are some that are off in left field, of course, like in everything out there. But the majority of them are talking, from what I hear, they are protesting the actions of the Israeli government against the Palestinian people. And so it's not a thing where they want all the Jews to die and all that kind of stuff. It's just that they want the actions of the Israeli government to stop or slow down or something, whatever they're asking for. I don't know, but anyway, am I wrong? Are the majority of them anti-Semitic?
Well, the first part of this, Jason raised up this whole thing about the law that was passed in the House. I don't think it went to the Senate as yet, as far as I know.
Oh,
but yeah. But the whole thing that will not withstand constitutional scrutiny. Now, this whole concept of hate speech to me is a nonsensical concept, even though it seems to have infected a lot of some of our laws. So but this one clearly will not survive. It is too vague and too broad. On this thing though about this warrantless search, these warrantless search and these warrantless spying, this is a real problem. And Jason, I totally agree. This is scary stuff. This thing was used against Donald Trump, okay, and not a single person have been prosecuted for it, for using these warrantless things to spy on his campaign and then later on his presidency. Not a single person in these United States have been prosecuted for this. This is scary beyond scary. Now, Tim, to your question about whether the majority of the people are just protesting the actions of the Israeli government versus they're actually anti-Zionist, where they really want to get rid of the Jewish state. I don't know what the breakdown is, okay? I don't know. But in these protests that we are seeing on the campuses and outside the campuses now, there is enough to tell me that chant from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, is nothing but a genocidal call. And that is enough for me that I think that is incitement and it should not be protected.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, and back to the FISA thing. Yeah, I've always been against that whole FISA court thing. It's always been. It originally came up with civil asset forfeiture. That's what
yes.
And the war on terror with the National Security Administration and so on. The NSA. Yeah. Yes. So. Bad. It's like, you want to make the policeman's work easy? Well, of course. You don't have to get a real warrant. You can just go ahead and get this phony thing they call a FISA warrant. So anyway, it's just to my way of thinking, it's just an end around, and it's basically a general warrant. And those have been against the founders and the framers and the Constitution from the get-go. So there we have it.
Well, no sooner did it pass, though, than we see it being used within weeks of passing. So, I mean, that's you give the government an inch, and it's going to take it. So, yeah, and then it's a little more.
That went through completely. It went past the Senate and was signed into law by.
I don't think so. Is it?
FISA is.
FISA is. But
the anti-Semitism one is still in process, I guess, but it passed the House.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So, well, anyways, we're getting Tim will shout hallelujah, but we're getting to the end of the show here, and so that's and what we like to do is share our Knucklehead Noise Patrol, and in the Knucklehead Noise Patrol, it's yet another thing that sort of gives a little bit of a sense of who the protesters are. And you may have thought the Knucklehead Noise Patrol from that first person who spoke at the beginning of the show that would be it, but actually this is a little more wild, and so. Leon, maybe you could bring up the visual here. So at NYU, some of the students who were protesting were actually praising North Korea and the fact that North Korea was aligning with Palestine. So I mean, it's like you can't make this stuff up. I mean, you would think these people kind of, you may be happy that you have some people on your side, but it's sort of like, if you have somebody who's like a serial killer, you don't want to say, "Oh, and he's on our side too." Right? You kind of want to, imagine that they're not on your side. Sort of like, if you're a politician and hey, there's this KKK guy who says he's on your side. Oh, okay, let's keep that. Well, apparently these students are actually celebrating North Korea, and so here's a video of one of these protesters here, and she's talking about how wonderful she thinks it is that North Korea is with them. And maybe you could play the video on that. It's KNP1.
So which side do y'all think North Korea supports, Palestine or Israel? Just guess. It is Palestine. The DPRK has actually never recognized the state of Israel. They have always upheld the right of Palestinian people to self-determination and resistance. And this is beyond moral and rhetorical support. The DPRK has actively armed and trained Palestinian resistance for decades. That includes the PLO, the PFLP, and the DFLP have trained troops by the DPRK. So while the US is here training the IOF with police, the North Korea is training Palestinian.
She's celebrating that North Korea is on the Palestinian side, and this is just crazy because apparently these students are so young they don't know who North Korea is. And I mean, here's Human Rights Watch. The Democratic Republic of North Korea remains one of the most repressive countries in the world, ruled by an authoritarian leader. Here's another article from the Human Rights Watch. A sense of terror stronger than a bullet. When talking about the lockdowns in North Korea that happened during COVID, as if they weren't locked down already, but apparently the border guards had orders to shoot their people on sight, I guess. I saw that. So yeah, it's and of course here is the Heritage Foundation saying that they literally have the worst score in the world on, I think it's on economic freedom, I think is which one, and yeah, so it says the world's least free in the 2024 index on economic freedom. That's North Korea, and as Christopher Hitchens said, it's as if North Korea saw Orwell's 1984 as a roadmap, as an instruction manual. So, you guys have any thoughts on this?
You know that idiot in the video? I will defend her right to make her idiotic statements. I'll defend her right to do that. Okay? Even though North Korea is probably one of the most oppressive and repressive states in the entire world, she has a right to make those idiotic statements. And even if there are people who are offended by those statements, people maybe like Yeonmi Park, who escaped from North Korea, will probably be offended by those statements. But she has a right to make those statements. She's a snowflake and an idiot, but she has those rights. The point is, though, is when those idiots start to make things that sound like they're supporting genocide and other types of violence, that's when we cross the line.
Okay, I agree with Leon. So there, what do you think?
That sounds like a great way to end. I think we all agree on this one.
It's always good to end in an agreement, I think.
Well, hopefully, it's funny because as a libertarian with all this stuff happening, I mean, I feel like, it's good to see people out there protesting. I think it would be great to see more libertarians out there protesting some of the terrible things the government's done. But boy, I tell you, some of the stuff that's going on in these protesters' heads at the campus, it's nuts.
But honestly, Jason, these protests that we are seeing now, okay, it is not like this is just start up and just sprang up. Okay, maybe it just started with this particular issue, but these things, these horrors have been going on the campuses for years, if not decades, where all sorts of things. You see this DEI stuff? That was just a new name of the tyranny that these people have been trying to impose for ages, for the last maybe 10, 20, 30 years. Because I remember when I'm 68 years of age, soon to be. And when I was going to the University of Oklahoma, they used to have a black student union. Okay? They were supporting segregation. And we had just come up. I went to school in the late 70s, University of Oklahoma. We had just come out of the long history of segregation in the South. Well, Oklahoma was not quote unquote a southern state, but it was a border southern state. But the point is, though, this thing that we are seeing going on today is just the fruit of the tree that was planted many, many years ago. And believe me, that tree is growing and will continue to grow because the administrators are the one planting the seeds.
Well, there you have it. So, by the way, if you've been watching this, and we thank you for sticking with us for the whole time, and if you haven't protested by turning it off already, but thanks so much for joining us on this one. And please check out some of our other stuff. We have a whole bunch online. Lots of people who've run for office and tried to make a difference in their community. We're going to have a person named Debbie Red Hat to talk about the Sacramento Safety Committee, I guess, and some of the protests that they've done here locally. So she'll be on next week, and we look forward to talking with her. But until that next show, think about what you can do in your community to make a difference, because this is you could kind of see the madness that's creeping over the country, and if people don't stand up, we're going to get kind of rolled over with our liberties here. So until next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.